So I'll give Peter a moment to catch his breath. I have actually known him and his family forever. Peter is, as I mentioned, a resident of the Austin area and had a challenge here with the recent ice storm there. But he happens to be a very successful landscape architect that's just done some incredibly beautiful work in that area. The other thing, though, is that he's been very active helping design and put together, in different capacities, and the title of his program is Ecological, Cooperative, Intentional Communities. And he's been actively involved in that for many years and has traveled all over the planet doing that. And so we were starting to talk about, let's see, is he a full professor or how long do we have to wait? But anyway, I will turn it over to you. And I thank everyone for their patience waiting. And thank you, Peter, for rushing from the class.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and try to do this. Share screen, host disabled participant screen sharing. Can the host let me share my screen?
You do it now.
Okay. And I guess I go to desktop 2 and I say share, and then I'll go into ecological cooperative slideshow and I'll start the slideshow. Does anyone see that?
Perfect.
Yes, good.
Oh, good, good. It worked. All right. Why do we need these? Throughout history and her story, humans have struggled with the questions of what is life for, how do we live with nature, and how do we live with each other? And this endeavor for a harmonious existence continues today. Individual and collective survival is being threatened by several global threats. Systemic burning and polluting with fossil fuels, disturbing the ecological balance. Systemic narrow psychology of individualism and greed leading to divisiveness, extreme concentration of wealth to the detriment of society, irrational dogmatic belief systems misguiding humans to war and degradation, dense concentrations of population causing distance from nature and food farms, inefficient, exploitative, centralized economies, and prepare models, this is why we need it, prepare models of new systems for after global and economic crises. The burning of fossil fuels. Our atmosphere is as thin as the skin is to the apple. Exploitation by the dominant class. Is this pyramid meant for a new housing project for all of us? Or maybe a public hospital or something to benefit the whole? I just wanted another place for myself for when I'm dead. So this is nothing new, the exploitation of a dominant class. And now it's the capitalists, where money is the extreme concentration of wealth to the detriment of society. If a monkey hoarded bananas that it could, more than it could eat, while the other monkey starves, scientists would study that monkey to figure out what was wrong. But when humans do it, we put them on the cover of Forbes. So that's the why. Many sages and saints of the past have encouraged us to create models of balanced, harmonious communities for a more perfect union with each other and nature. And all of these attempts should be analyzed for their successes and failures. In ancient India, there was a matriarchal agricultural system called the Gotra system. Also, Shiva's Kashi, that was his city 7,000 years ago. Krishna's Dwaraka 3,500 years ago. And there are 6 essential guidelines for society's progress. They said spiritual practice, which basically meditation, spiritual ideology, life is to attain a higher joyful consciousness called Ananda, social outlook. These are their 6 essential guidelines that these 2 visionaries way in the ancient past. Social outlook, humanity is one family. Social economic theory, which is basically cooperations and like this. There's a lot to be said on each one of these. Systematic scripture guidelines. and a preceptor, which is a great enlightened personality to inspire us. Now, we have recently found out, the archaeologists, that this is actually quite a bit older than either Mesopotamia or Egypt, and maybe the dawn of real civilization, quite a large city along the Indus River Valley called Mohenjo-Daro. And the fascinating thing about this particular community was how extremely well it was engineered for the water system, both water in and water out, the wastewater, et cetera. I mean, within the inches, it was very well done. And this is 6,000 BCE. And it was also a river community, which was also their downfall when the river changes course. But they also had yoga practices. What they found, the archaeologists found icons, etc. Then Shiva was about 7,000 years ago, and his winter capital was in the Himalayas. And his summer capital was along the Ganges, or the Ganga, in what was called Kashi then, which is 7,000 years underneath Benares, just built on top and on top and on top. And he was teaching one human society. He systematized medicine, music, culture, and that spread around the world. And this is Benares, another shot of Benares. Then Krishna, another visionary that we should study because of these communities. It came around 3,500 years ago. He was teaching yoga meditation for Ananda, and he had to fight against the exploitation by a few of the many and promote one human society. Once again, this happened. Then Buddha came about 2,500 years ago and had to stand against dogmatic caste system of enlightenment only for the few, the Brahmins and Pundits, but not for all. This is a shot of the ruins of probably the first university, Nalanda Buddhist University in Bihar, India. So many of these spiritual practices and culture spread around the globe, and many indigenous tribal cultures give us, for thousands of years, the reverence towards nature and all her cycles, unlike other eco-destructive cultures which strove to dominate over nature. Even the spiritual practices too, shamanism, etc., very similar. With the industrial growth of megacities worldwide, much of humanity has lost the spiritual and psychic healing that comes with environmental connectedness. And the Iroquois nation in the US also, in North America, it wasn't the US at that time, inspired the governance, Ben Franklin and these from the bottom up, and diverse representation, unlike top-down governance. It inspired the Constitution, the original Constitution. So we have these cities, communities of the ancients. This one is in a southern exposure hillside overlooking their crops down in the valley with the round spiritual kiva rooms, vibrant cities. The Hopi, this is an old photo, but the Hopi have very, and they have the underground round for their ceremonies and spiritual practices, the kivas they call them, and a lot of incredible similarities to the Tibetan culture that I found, and city design. Here we have Mayan architecture. I was meditating on this very spot, and I thought about the connection to southern India and how that must have influenced the architecture. And I looked up, and there's a sixth chakra up at the top, and then the crown chakra above it. And then I looked across the valley, and there it was again in the side of the hillside. So we have stuff to learn from a lot of these ancients. This is a temple from southern India that has also those same layers of the mind, basically. This is the Mandan villages. This is not a very good, but they had a fascinating urban design with a central plaza, and people would sit on their earthen lodges in a circle around it, and then the next ring around that. It was just wonderful, but they're quite an interesting tribe and design of their communities with agriculture on the bend of a river, but they died not from the river changing course, but from smallpox. Here's the Iroquois Nation with their longhouses and the Cherokee Nation. Oh no, this is actually in, well, this is tribal villages around the world. This is in southern India. And here we have in Africa. And so I've studied all these and they're quite fascinating. We have learned, these are like individual family compounds, but you still have that collective community area in the plaza, the center. And this is in Bali when I was here, and these symbolize the layers of the mind also. Then in the last few centuries, many religious groups have created sustainable communities in the Western Hemisphere, escaping from repressive, degrading societies of Europe. The Pilgrims, the Shakers, the Amish, the Mennonites, and we have something to learn from them. They developed a lot of crafts and skills that were isolated by the corporations in the cities. So they learned sustainability. This is a Mennonite community. This is a Shaker community. This is an Amish community, and they had their practices. Then in the 20th century, a wave of the ancient science of yoga meditation, spiritual practices, swept around the world again, spawning many communities. Auroville in southern India, Ananda Cooperative Village in California, and a wave of communities seeking a more sustainable, cooperative lifestyle, leaving the alienation of the cities. People get so psychologically alienated in their little boxes in the cities. Findhorn of Scotland, the farm community of Tennessee, which is what these photos are of, the kibbutz of Israel, co-housing and eco-villages, just to name a few. Let's examine some of those. This is Auroville in southern India, built as a model ideal community. And these are the different segments of society and the different radial sections. This is Findhorn in northern Scotland, a very harsh environment, but with their practices and with nature, they have done some remarkable things with their agriculture. All of these have pluses and minuses. This one we have a lot to learn from. Ananda Cooperative Village is an offshoot from Self-Realization Fellowship. Paramahansa Yogananda was the guru. And they started a village in Northern California, which I visited a couple times. And what they did, they were able to transition from private ownership to collective ownership and to establish membership levels through training seminars. It was pretty fascinating how their take on that. And I think we have a lot to learn from them. This is the kibbutz in Israel. You know, the agriculture and the different parts of the society, the collective nature of their education and their religion. This is an eco-village in Netherlands. Pretty well designed. And this is the basic idea of co-housing and eco-villages, where it's an intentional community. People come together and buy a property together, and that way they can share the common house. They don't each have to have their own, you know, large kitchen or a dining hall and play, you know, education, kids. A lot of the amenities can be shared. Now, interestingly enough, this can happen anywhere. Usually they're rural, but this is in downtown Detroit, where the old neighborhoods falling apart, dilapidated, tear downs, and they went back almost 200 years to the way it was agricultural, and they're creating communities around these food farms. Then in the 1960s, the Indian philosopher, social reformer, and yoga meditation guru, P.R. Sarkar, started developing rural service projects to uplift the poor, neglected people of India's hinterlands. and later then expanding them to be complete, comprehensive, ecological, cooperative model communities, addressing all of human physical needs, the food, shelter, medicine, clothes, and education, but also the social, mental, and spiritual needs. He used the word Ananda to name these communities, the great joy that's within all of us. And this is a terrible photo of a photo, but these schools were in areas where kids would not have an education, very rural and tribal areas of India. Now, how? Most of the successful community examples that we have to look at had a spiritual base. These were the successful ones. A lot of them did not make it. They didn't have the cohesiveness of these practices to help our mental and emotional needs and cooperate better with each other. P.R. Sarkar called the yoga meditation lifestyle intuitional practices. They're based on the science of biopsychology, combined with various service projects to benefit the surrounding communities. Now, these two, the service projects and this lifestyle, become significant foundations for healthy, unifying community attitudes to overcome the past psychological tendencies towards selfishness, greed, ecological destruction, and hoarding. So I found that these two really help the cohesiveness and the success of these communities. P.R. Sarkar updated these 6 essential guidelines for social progress. I talked about from ancient India, the importance of spiritual practice and ideology, while not neglecting collective welfare, the social and ecological. P.R. Sarkar called these model communities chakra nemi from Sanskrit, which means nucleus or hub, a central place for all the surrounding people. They are often called master units in a model master plan, as in a model master plan for others to emulate. These are research centers helping develop new improved medical treatments using all the modalities of healing and lifestyle, new education curriculums and methods based on a new inclusive humanism, new improved agricultural methods, and better ecological energy sources. But all of these advances are not to be imposed, but collectively developed through cooperatives. I enjoyed studying his take, his vision. Members will have different proclivities and skills, and we'll be drawn into one or more of the cooperatives, and we're going to go through them. And each environmental and social location will also be unique. But each community will have the same basic needs and necessary components: an education cooperative for schools, seminars, forums, an agricultural cooperative for food and clothing, a medical cooperative, and the overall administration team, which will manage the financial, legal, infrastructure maintenance of the various cooperatives and their hostels. We'll go over these. In the early stages, a thorough site analysis is of extreme importance and will include all the environmental patterns, including solar orientation, wind climate patterns, topography, floral and fauna patterns, water patterns, utilities, historical sites, circulation patterns, and a survey of all the local and regional settlements and their needs and their surpluses. See, this is the site analysis, which is what I've helped so many communities do in the very beginning. What do we have here, you know? And then comes the site planning, which is best done with the full participation of everyone, so everyone feels some ownership of the design. I call them design conferences. And the thorough site analysis will tell you the best locations for the development of the different components of the village. Where? Well, not too far and not too close to these mega cities, but hopefully with a water source, though adjustments can be made in all environments to create a cooperative research service center community, like in downtown Detroit. So this is one of the site plans we did for one in Brazil. The site analysis, climate, surrounding community needs, utilities, and the site planning. Where's the best agriculture? Where do you have a nature preserve or beauty spots or meditation spots? And the timeline for the development, considering the member skills. Okay, then let's start now with the agricultural cooperative, and I'll show finally not that much text and more photos. This important department component of a successful community can take many forms and projects. Sarkar composed 2 volumes on the subject of ideal farming with integral farming, which includes self-sufficiency, cottage industries, energy production, water conservation, horticulture, dairy, apiculture, a mill, a seed bank, very important, and research. He also described the benefits of intercropping, companion planting, crop rotations, natural fertilizers and pest control, and a wide variety of crops, farm cooperatives, and cottage industry products like honey, a bakery for breads, medicines, soaps, lotions, oceans, and oils and fibers. Fascinating book. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about this because it's one of my things. I used to run a large organic farm, which was a CSA, community supported agriculture, with paying members. And so it can be an organic farm for profit, the produce and products to support the internal community, but also selling to the external communities, where you need a tractor and implements, greenhouses, processing barn, etc. Agroforests, which is very popular now, along with permaculture and orchards, to mix, this intercropping sort of thing. And we have some experts on that. Greenhouse micros, another way, very healthy, nutritious, medicinal gardens and their products. Cooperative market for regional farmers. To sell your products, you create farmer markets, which we did actually. And regional farmer cooperative for co-owning tractors, equipment, the mill, the storage, take out the middleman sort of thing. These are really great services. And then seminars for new models and techniques and products and research. That's all the different varieties that can happen, options that can happen in this agricultural department of a community. Now, a crash course on organic farming would be, of course, you need soil, water, and labor-saving equipment. But the most important tool I found is called a spader and not a tiller, which makes a hard pan, and it's actually really bad for the soil. And you have furrow plows and a harvesting trailer and a fill mower maybe, and then you need a processing barn with wash stations and tractor implement parking, and you need a walk-in cooler and maybe some greenhouses or hoop house. And after shredding the cover crops in a wide variety of different cover crops that maintains the fertility of the soil, and you have different cover crops for different crops and soils, and maybe dicing them up and for quicker decomposition with the flail mower, and then you spray them with microbial inoculants and microorganisms and mantra. Well, that's what we did. I use EM, which is effective microorganisms, and mix it with molasses, but you can make your own, and some are doing that now, and it's a fascinating science. And then you spade them into these permanent beds. The soil community and the plants just thrive with this process of rotating that between your crops. And the food, really high nutritional value then, and improving the soil community. It's a wonderful science, and I just went through it really fast, but I wanted to share some of that with you. It was my farm. It's now called Urban Roots. It's a nonprofit. The greenhouses, the walk-in cooler, the hoop house, and that's the spader in the middle of the field. And there's some of the members. I had 30 family members and 6 student co-ops joined. And there's the amphitheater, the stage, the greenhouses, and the walk-in cooler. Now, water is not just for the agricultural sector of the community, but for the entire community. Very, very important. And Anand Nagar is one of the most developed eco-villages, yoga meditation eco-villages in the world. And it's in what was a very exploited, poor area of India. And it was deforested by the colonists, and they were really suffering from the depleted water table. So by making a lot of check dams, this is actually a large dam on one of the rivers, but a lot of check dams, they were able to raise the groundwater significantly, and with reforestation, and it's helped in so many ways. And this is some of the crops, some of the fields. And now we move to Bali, where the children in an adjacent school to the eco-village crops are learning all about agriculture, planting the seeds. And now we're at another one of these yoga meditation eco-villages that were inspired by P.R. Sarkar's guidelines and inspiration. This one is in Thailand on the border with Burma, and again on a water source, which helps so much with their agriculture, but rich soils, also alluvial soils, and their greenhouses. And now we move to Brazil. This is one of the eco-villages that I helped design, and their crops that they learned how to do with their tractor. And another interesting thing about here is that we left large areas into the primal forest, and actually harvesting some of the native seeds that can be sold to corporations that need to reforest areas that have been destroyed, and also foods that can come out of the preserve. This is the one in upstate New York called Ananda Viplava, the greenhouse, and they're doing the intercropping, the agroforest systems, where some of these trees actually bring in nutrients to the perennial and annual crops between the rows. Back to Thailand. Now I wanted to jump to cottage industries that are connected to the agricultural component of one of these successful communities. Goats are actually much more popular globally than cows, and actually probably healthier for us, for our human bodies, more the same size as us. And so they are learning how to make goat cheese, and it's part of the skills that they teach for people's careers. And then they are growing fiber plants and making fibers out of it for looms and making clothes, as they also do in Ananda Nagar in India. Okay, let's go to another component of a successful eco-village, and that would be the medical cooperative. This can be clinics, hospitals, wellness center, and all should utilize a variety of modalities for healthcare. This is P.R. Sarkar's vision. We should utilize naturopathy, Ayurvedic, acupuncture, allopathic when needed, homeopathic, herbal, and healing through the yoga techniques of using water and fasting and asanas and diet. This can also include storage for disaster relief materials. So this is where all the doctors and nurses and the healthcare people will focus in the village on this component and in these different options. This is a clinic in the Anandanagar, India area. They'll have clinics in a lot of the rural villages where they have very, very poor healthcare. But, and this is back in Thailand, where a lot of refugees coming across the border need a lot of medical help. This is the clinic there. This community is called Ban Unrak, one of the most complete, with completing a lot of the different components of, I think, a healthy, successful community. This is a hospital at Anandanagar in India. Also, I'm going to highlight the communities that were able to get all the different components to make it healthy, to more complete on PR Carr's vision for these communities. And this is a wellness center in another one of these ecological communities in Asheville, North Carolina, United States. And these wellness centers have been sprouting up all around in these communities around the world. And they have a really nice regimen that people are healing themselves of many diseases, including cancer, by graduated fasting, juice fasting, etc., and a lot of the yoga and meditation techniques combined. Now I wanted to highlight something that actually borders on agriculture with the medical cooperative. Spirulina farming was developed by some communities in Kenya, and it's provided incredible nutritional benefits to a very malnutritious population. And another one is moringa, also from Africa. Well, actually, the tree itself is originally from India, the drumstick tree, they call it. Every portion of this plant has so much nutritional value, the fruits and the leaves, and you can keep cutting it and using it. This is them processing it, and one of these PR Sarkar inspired communities in Burkina Faso, where they make it into powder. This can be for service, but also for profit, to help really malnutritious surrounding children's homes, but also for sale in the cities, because it's great. It has a lot of benefits. Well, here it is, one of their markets and how they're selling moringa faso, the grains, the powder, and the infusion, different, it's in Burkina Faso. Now we'll jump to the education cooperative. This component of the community is often the very first project established, providing a variety of schools, especially in developing countries for the poorly served children of the area, but also has seminar centers in this cooperative education. This is where all the teachers will go. The schools, from preschool to colleges, are based on Sarkar's neo-humanistic curriculum, which promotes ecological and social universal welfare, providing a conducive environment for the students' well-being on all levels: physical, social, intellectual, creative, and spiritual. Sarkar is using the ancient education system of India called Gurukul, where the educators are exemplary in ethics and lifestyle in a joyful, natural setting. And here we are back at Anandanagar in India, which is huge and it encompasses several villages. And so many, I think there's actually 29 schools and student hostels for them. And the kids learn meditation and they're happy. Terrible photo. And then adjacent to Ananda Nagar is a women's run center called Uma Nivas. And this is the girls' school. And they're even a more underrepresented part of society of the surrounding population, the girls in India. And now they have a college there where they're learning computer science and technology. And now this is one of our communities in Mexico, and these are indigenous children learning yoga and meditation. And we're back at the schools in Ban Unrak in Thailand. Large school system. And so important. These kids were very, very neglected, and they're refugees, and they're advancing through the grades and getting careers in Thailand now. Ban Unrak. Now, the education seminar system, I just covered the school system, fosters dialogues and research for the all-round renaissance of society. These public seminars will cover the advancement for our future in all fields: agriculture, health, and medical care. You know, the other cooperatives can use this, the hall or amphitheater, or you know, the education system that we have, center. Sustainable energy seminars, cooperatives, you know, how to create, you know, should we, what kind, with the surrounding communities, and new economic structures of Prout, which was P.R. Sarkar's system, economic system, recommendations, skills training, very important, and yoga meditation. These are the variety of seminars that can and are being given. Yoga meditation sessions will include the science of biopsychology, yoga psychology, Ashtanga yoga, very ancient system, yoga therapy, and transforming crude animal instincts and hormones and negative psychic traits into subtle, benevolent, peaceful, joyous consciousness is the idea of this. And one of our premier seminar centers is called the Prama Institute at Anandagiri Shuta in Asheville, North Carolina. Prama is a Sanskrit term which means balance, a really important concept, balance physical, mental, and spiritual, and social. Lots of wonderful seminars happening there. This is one in one of those domes right now with a teacher who's very versed in yoga therapy and subtle yoga and the different benefits of yoga. Also in that community on the left is a school for children. I think it's called Mountain Breeze School for all the surrounding communities where they use that curriculum. And on the right is the new Neo-Humanistic College, Humanistic Education College, where they have a lot of online courses and training for teachers around the world. Adjacent to this is a women's run Ananda Vitika Center for women's welfare. This is their new center, which has a hall for programs. And now I'm jumping back to Brazil. This is one of the more complete yoga meditation eco-villages that were inspired by P.R. Sarkar's ideas. It's called Visão Vituro, which means future vision in Portuguese. I helped with a lot of these designs. They have an agricultural sector, a medical sector, a bakery, but and the housing, and a lot of the surrounding community are employed here now, but their big income is from their seminar center, their program hall, where people come from many surrounding cities throughout Brazil to learn biopsychology and yoga psychology. And even corporations and cities are sending their employees there to become healthier, to lose their addictions and problems. And it is very successful, although I heard it had quite a hit during the pandemic. And then we'll go to Ananda Gauri in Denmark, which is quite a wonderful seminar center. Mostly that's their main component. And they have many successful seminars that happen there from people from around the world come and learn about social economic theories and processes. And they have a wonderful bakery there, one of their cottage industries that supplies food, all the products to the restaurants and stores in the city of Copenhagen, which is actually pronounced Kubenhavn. This is one of the plans that I did for them. This is only a portion of it, but it shows how they're trying now to implement the agricultural component of the community with orchard, permanent bed spader crops, and intercropping with perennials, an amphitheater, et cetera, et cetera. And they're also expanding into another very close property for a farmers cooperative for all the surrounding farmers. And then in upstate New York, we come back to Ananda Viplava, which I helped find and design, where they're developing the agricultural, but wonderful seminar center on a wide variety of subjects, and their new hall for seminars. In fact, they have more than one, and they're developing a very large one with a dormitory, hostel. And then we have one in Mexico called Madumaya. That's a little bit small now, but it's a very vibrant seminar center, I would call it. Oops, well, I only had one slide of that. And then there's another one called Ananda Kirtana in Brazil, with a wonderful seminar center and quite a vibrant community of quite a few families. And in Russia, they're developing a lot of these different components on their village community also. A lot of seminars go on there that are conducted on Facebook and Zoom also. This is back in Ananda Nagar, where they're having a developing skills for a job fair, career, for a lot of these, what was a very isolated, rural, poor area of India. And these kids are not only getting the skills and education, but are getting good jobs. This is so I wanted to, on the seminar system, I wanted to say that it doesn't have to be a hall, which it usually is, some kind of hall or classrooms. They can also be outdoor pavilions. And this is one place where I teach many classes on meditation, and amphitheaters. Another could be a very good component of an eco-village. This is a stage and amphitheater on that farm in Austin, with a benefit concert happening for some disaster relief. Okay, the administration team. This is really important because it manages the relations and finances of the different internal departments and cooperatives. This can include conflict resolution training, also finding a balance between service projects to those in need and projects for profit. You know, there's a balance that goes on there. You know, doing service, really helping these really needy, but also you need some profit for sustaining and developing. So that's a balance that has to happen. And some of the departments will generate a lot of funds that will subsidize the other projects, like that Visao Futuro, the seminars on biopsychology. A lot of income comes and it subsidizes the clinic and other departments. And it also, the administration team also does networking with all the outside supporters, including government legalities, regional festivals, marketing, product sales, and projects in the cities. This is Ananda Kalyani in Portugal. And I'm highlighting this for this particular component because with the EU, they are what's the word I'm looking for? They host festivals from all of Europe. The youth of Europe come here for music festivals and a lot of skilled training. And they have a center in the city, several centers with a cafe, a yoga center, a restaurant, and that helps. And on cottage industries, their income comes from the tech industry. They work with networking and websites, and this helps support and develop the community. So the cottage industries, that aspect can be very, very important. And this is the cottage industry of Ban Unrak in Thailand, where they use that goat cheese and all their products, really fresh, good, nutritious foods in a restaurant and cafe and sales to others. This is back in Asheville, North Carolina, where they have a yoga center in the city and a shop, a stall that sells their products and clothes and everything called Cosmic Vision, which helps support the rural eco-village. The administration team will facilitate the collective process of development decisions, starting with the site analysis, site planning, creating a master plan, which will determine the best locations for the different projects, agriculture, school, seminar hall, clinic, wellness center, hostels, housing, where are the best locations, beauty spots, meditation, nature centers, with priorities for implementation. This timeline will depend on the needs, the personnel, and the funding available. The administration team also has to determine, this is something that we learned from Ananda Cooperative Village, the membership levels. Depending on the dedication, adherence to a code of ethics, karma yoga internships, spiritual lifestyle training, service, how serviceful, spiritual practice and investment. This determines the membership levels. And this is big because, well, I want to give my home to my kids, but they may not be. See, positions of management are often held by volunteers who have forsaken their personal gain and family for serving others, the big human family. And these service projects, through these service projects, they are often dedicated yoga monks and nuns, along with their local volunteers and trainees in ashram type settings. So this may be like a core part of the administration or the community in these communities that are inspired by Sarkar's vision. So I'm touching on some big subjects. Because we have been living in an age of capitalism for many generations, which promotes the psychology of self-centered accumulation and greed, bridging into the new paradigm of cooperative collective ownership can be very difficult. But this psychic clash will benefit our progress. If private ownership persists, future owners may become antagonistic to the spiritual and serviceful lifestyle of the community. Now, this doesn't mean, people can still have private ownership or private enterprise or projects and have a symbiotic relationship with the community. But the center, the community center, I believe should be collectively owned for these reasons. And the membership then is a gradual process. The kids if they go through these programs, and then they can actually become full-blown members. Now, another point is there will always be struggle and conflict on the material and psychic planes of existence. There will always be struggle, but there will be progress both individually and collectively when the goal is union with a higher guiding universal consciousness, Ananda in Sanskrit, where the joy we are looking for exists. You know, with that, you know, that's why the most successful communities had that. Stop imaging the apocalypse and start imaging the revolution. You know, we get a lot of real negative survivalist. And cosmic alignment and personal balance between personal and social. This is a photo taken at noon on winter solstice. So how do I get out of here now, you guys? Hit escape. And now what do? I stop sharing? Can you see me? Are y'all still there?
Yes. Yes, we're here. You just have to click the stop share at the. Yeah,
there we go. There we go. Ta-da! I have two screens and I got a little bit. I went real fast through a lot of subjects because I started so late, and I'm sorry about that. How was it? Are you all still with me? We lost a few people, but does anyone have any questions or comments?
It was super inspiring for me, Peter, to see all the projects around the world, and that you've been involved with many, if not all of the ones you mentioned. It's very, very impressive and very inspiring. And I thank you for that.
For me too. It's been a wonderful experience for me to actually take my profession and do something really great for society and see how it's affecting all the surrounding communities.
The one question I do have for you, you mentioned about the deforestation at Anandanagar in West Bengal, and you mentioned it was the colonialists, the British. I mean, so I don't know that history very well. I didn't know that it used to be mainly forested land. So I guess when you say it was the British responsible for deforestation, Sarkar talked about how the British took the raw materials in India, took them back to the United Kingdom, and then sold the finished products back in India, which degraded or de-developed the local economies in India. So I'm not sure if that's how deforestation occurred at Anandanagar, because the people became poorer with this new economic model, and then they had to start cutting trees, except, or were you saying that the British were the ones who went into Anandanagar and were just cutting up the trees? That part of the presentation was not clear to me.
Or to me. They were very exploitative and not caring for the ecology or the rural communities. I'm not sure of the exact history there, but I was told that it was deforested and the British were part of it, probably not to take the product overseas like other things they did, probably more for building, you know, nearby cities and communities, you know, whatever. Anyways, this area, even though it had a rich, ancient spiritual culture, became very, very depleted and neglected. And that's one of the reasons it was chosen as a place to start these projects.
I have a little familiarity with the history of Anandanagar. The local mafia actually were exploiting the natural resources. And when Andamarga moved in there, they actually stopped that. And so that actually created a clash between the local mafia and the Andamarga organization.
Right. Well, that's more recent history. And this is a much older history, but that's there also. And, it's exploitation and exploitation, so there's been a lot of progress made.
Yeah.
But I like blaming the British because they also had a really, we didn't learn how bad colonialism was in our education in the United States. How they really made the people feel inferior, and they killed just the right ones, and they took as much as they can and gave back as little as possible. So, yeah.
There's something really interesting in the chat. Maggie and Alan put. Can you read the chat, Peter? Do you have access to click on the chat?
I do. We're developing a 21st century sustainable homestead in the mountains of Virginia. Wow, good for you. We are developing a DIY panelized construction system. Oh, yeah. For building affordable small houses, workshops, and outbuildings. We are hoping to create a wall greenhouse, fish pond, permaculture, food forest as well. Yeah, eco-architecture can take so many, there are a lot of wonderful products now available. And kudos to you. I use Hable Block and Insulform, and there's Cobb. There's so many ways, but I like those wall systems that you're referring to. And the fish pond also helps a lot in the greenhouse and the agriculture. I see a lot of benefit in the concepts of permaculture. I also, though, really like the use of a tractor and a spader in permanent beds. I think you can just produce so much really nutritional food with these microbial inoculants. So a combination of all these different systems could be great. Does anyone else have something?
Yeah, so you presented a very comprehensive framework, which does require some expertise for a community to get started. So a substantial planning of land and the architecture and the infrastructure. I mean, there is a substantial engineering component in developing these things, these centers. Is there a body of knowledge that is available for someone to get started in an endeavor like this? Because it seems pretty daunting, actually. I mean, the ones that are quite developed, I mean, it looks quite daunting.
There are experts in all of these different fields that you can tap through me, through Prout Alliance, through Gurukul, through Neo-Humanistic College. They're developing a lot of classes on these subjects. But it's not that daunting. I say just go for it, get started. And each one of these projects started simply, with one project, one house that classes were conducted in, and it grew then. People were inspired, more people came, and it developed into these other different components. That's the way I tried to make this slideshow, showing that, the timeline where you can, it's unique for each one of these locations and social and ecological location, and with the different members that you have. But I say, get started.
I might piggyback on that. One of the things Sarkar recommends in many areas of endeavor is a phased approach. Mm-hmm. And I think this is an ideal situation where you can develop things like this over a phased cycle over a period of time and build on, as you build capacity, you can continue to grow and build. And and start addressing some of the other areas that are critical to
Exactly.
have facilities available.
Sure. I mean, all of these communities in India started with a simple little school, and they bought 5 acres or whatever and started a school or a clinic was there. So yeah, one step at a time.
Any other questions that people may have? And maybe I shouldn't share this, but Peter is recently retired, and maybe we can get him to share his contact information if you'd like to follow up with additional questions, because he really is. I know a fair number of people, and he really is probably the global resident expert on developing these kinds of facilities. As you see, he was sharing where he's been and worked with people, not just what he's heard about.
Well, I only shared a few of them, but my email address, because I am dedicating a lot of time to helping people design their projects. And I say helping design. I don't design it. It's a collective thing. We do it together, My email address is peter@Oasis Gardens, is one word, oasisgardens.com. That's my professional email address. And I have an oasisgardens.com website that you can see some of the, a lot of that's the rich and famous estates that I help design for people, but also some other things, some eco designs are there too.
I could tell many stories about Peter, but I won't.
What I wanted to say, the presentation gives us hope for our future, that, when you put all these master units in a string and we get to see them around the world,
right,
we actually have a sense that humanity is moving towards the next stage, the next era. And, it sort of balances out all the negativity we hear every day about what's happening to the planet.
Yeah.
We're not hearing about the progress that's being made. So, right, your presentation gives us hope.
Yeah. And we all need to look in that direction too. Help these struggling communities and projects around the world, and maybe align with one of them in your area. We need to prepare a lot of these projects. Stuff's coming, a lot of stuff's coming on this planet. So we need that sustainability in so many ways.
I think those are excellent points. In many respects, many of the heavy concentrations of humanity in large metro areas, if there get to be some real challenges, those are going to start emptying out, and decompressing a little bit, and people will be trying, there's been a long cycle of people moving from the country into the cities. Right. And I think we can anticipate that cycle is going to reverse.
As it did in the 1930s, when everyone went back to the family farm, but now only 2% of the families own farms, back then, so yeah, we need these communities very much so. And yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't have any photos of the Prout Research Institute. It's rather new, and I cobbled this together through some difficulty, but yeah, the Prout Research Institute in Asheville is wonderful. I'm so happy that we are going to have a center there that will promote this also. And Guru Kul also promotes this, these communities.
Yeah, if anyone that's attended this or others that you may know have travel plans, get in touch and find out if there's one of these programs near where you'll be traveling, or even near where you live. And, anyone that's working with these is happy to do tours and share information about their experience. I think Peter's absolutely correct. It's always a time, place, and person situation, and each one is unique. But but the collective knowledge and experience that's been accumulated can really help facilitate other, approaches trying to, come up with a similar kind of program.
We all have the same needs. It's just different timelines, but we need to make these models. We need to make these models for the future.
Yeah, I think in some respects, I've sort of regarded them, they're almost like the lifeboats for human society. If the challenges get severe, there are models out there of
Right.
what can be replicated next door or something.
Exactly. That's what P.R. Sarkar really wanted to do. Make these little nuclei around the world, for people to, have. We don't want a vacuum once there's a collapse or a change in the global economy or ecology. I've been teaching for over 3.5 hours now. So I'd like to call it an evening with y'all.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say, we have run over time, and we appreciate everyone that was able to stay, and thank Peter very much for an outstanding presentation.
Yeah.
And thank